Shortly after Kanye's breakout album, The College Dropout, he founded a new record label, G.O.O.D Music, aka Getting Out Our Dreams, with the first signee of the label being John Legend, who would go on to win 3 awards with 8 total nominations at the Grammys following his album Get Lifted, which was the first commercial release for the label. You'd think that the sky was the limit for everyone who would go on to be involved with good music.
The good music spirit, it goes to John Legend, yeah.
But things aren't always as it seems. Let's start from the beginning.
Why did you suddenly decide, okay, now the time is right now to get my own album out there?
Well, it wasn't like I had a choice like that. It was something I was trying to do, and people they weren't giving me the opportunity to come out with an album.
Only a few months after Kanye released his coveted album, The College Dropout, in 2004, Sony Music offered him the chance to run his own label, and Kanye decided to accept the offer. G.O.O.D Music, an acronym for Getting Out Our Dreams, became a record label that showed the potential to become one of the greatest record labels of all time from the moment the show began. The first batch of initial signees to Kanye's label consisted of John Legend and Common, with John still on the come-up and Common already being established in his own right throughout the industry. John Legend in the R&B scene, with his debut album Get Lifted winning multiple Grammys, followed by his second album, Once Again, going back-to-back on winning John the Best Male R&B Vocal Performance Grammy. Then you have Common, who came into good music having already seen worldwide success with his albums like Water for Chocolate and Electric Circus. Combining all 3 of these artists together was as solid of a foundation for a growing label as you could get, and things only rose from this moment onwards. Award season was a complete success for the trio, with multiple Grammy wins and even more nominations, and this was only the beginning. Over the next period of time, multiple wheels began to spin. The first cog that began to turn was also the start of a long and complicated relationship that fans would grow to know a lot about over the next 20 years.
I was looking at CDs that I couldn't buy, and, and he was standing right next to me looking at CDs.
That he could buy.
And then that he could buy, and he had this exact chain on, and I remember seeing it, and like, out of the corner of my eye, it was like gleaming, and I was like, and I saw him, and I was like, oh my God. And I was like, Kanye West, I had just moved to New York. I'm from Cleveland.
How many years
we don't
ago
see
was
celebrities
this?
unless it's like concert.
How long ago was this?
2004.
Okay.
So it's right after the Grammys. I think he still had the graffiti in his head. Remember he did the ill lines in his head. So I remember that, seeing that. And I remember me just going like, how you doing? My name is Cudi. Well, actually I said my name was Scott, because I wasn't Kid Cudi yet. So I was like, I'm Scott, man. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, man. I'm from the and I remember him being like, hold on 1 second. Hey, man, I'm gonna call you right back. And him being like, yeah, so what's up? Like getting off his phone, and I was just like, I'm from Cleveland, and I do music, and I really want to be signed. Can you sign me? Like I had no pitch. Like I was just this kid. I was like, could you just sign me? And he was like, man, I got so many artists right now, man, that I'm trying to deal with right now. He's like, and unless you want some Biggie and Tupac type stuff or whatever. And I was like, nah. I'm not that good, but I have the potential for greatness. And I remember saying that. And he was just like, oh man, well, I just got so much going on though, man. I was like, man, well, you definitely gonna see me again, man. He was like, what you say your name was again? I was like, Scott, but my rap name is Kid Cudi, so be checking for me.
Kid Cudi met Kanye for the first time while shopping for CDs that he couldn't afford, and then just striking up a conversation with them. Following this, Kanye managed to bring Consequence into the label after working together previously. This relationship provided fans with some enjoyable music, but ultimately would end like many others that will follow suit. Consequence dropped his own album to add to the collection under the label, and well, his album titled Don't Quit Your Day Job wasn't the best. In fact, he probably should have listened to himself when naming the album, because I have never seen an artist drop something so underwhelming that they would go onto MySpace and offer refunds to fans who didn't like any of the songs. It did debut at #1 on the Billboard New Artist chart though, with 7,900 units first week, but that's all you can really ask for. Late Registration is heralded as an all-time great album with tracks like Touch the Sky, Gold Digger, and Hey Mama. And it was another stone in the infinity gauntlet of Grammy wins the label was collecting throughout its early years.
And the Grammy for Best Rap Album goes to
I'm proud to say, late registration, Kanye West.
Following the release of this classic record, good music would go on a rampage. John Legend released his album once again, Consequence should have not released Don't Quit Your Day Job, and then Kanye would go on to sign Big Sean. The up-and-coming rapper from Detroit is a well-known name these days, but at the time, he hadn't grown worldwide notoriety.
And my homie called me and was like, yo, you listening to the radio? And I'm like, nah, what's up? He like, man, Kanye on the radio, man. Psh, man, he playing his new record. Yo, if you go down to the radio station and rap for him, he'll sign you. And I'm like, nigga, fuck you talking about? Hell, you know. But that idea was so inspiring that I would straight up walked out of line without cashing my check, went and grabbed my CDs from the crib, you know, smashed down to the station, finagled my way in the back offices, got past his security guard, got past his road manager, met him. And, you know, I told him I'm an aspiring MC. I do this show here every Friday. Can I rap for you? And he's like, man, I got to go, man, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, please, man, I ride to school listening to you. You my hero. You know what I'm saying? So he was like, all right, man, you got 16 bars, but you got to rap while we walking out the station. So at first he wasn't really paying attention when I started rapping, but as soon as we got to the entrance of the station, he stopped and started bobbing his head. And I was so nervous. I never met a celebrity. I started rapping towards the floor. And ended up rapping for like 10 minutes straight. And he fucked with it, man. I gave him my CD, and he started riding to it, and that's how the initiating contact began. And it took a couple years, though, honestly, after that. You know, I gave up a lot of shit, man. I gave up a scholarship. I gave up college. I gave up a lot of shit I really wanted to do.
This would spark the label into action with Common's album Finding Forever, Graduation, and then finally Famous Volume 1 from Sean. Then a mixtape dropped, which would lead Kanye to forming a pivotal relationship with a lot of tie-in to way later in his career. A young artist who Kanye met a few years prior created a mixtape so phenomenal that the world would begin to take notice of him. More specifically, Kanye would finally take notice of him. That young artist was none other than the same guy who bumped into Ye shopping for CDs carrying around the name of Kid Cudi. And well, he accomplished his dream of having Kanye sign him to Good Music, and history was instantly made. Kanye put Cudi to work on 808s and Heartbreak as soon as the pen hit the paper, and when it came time to finally drop it, those who hadn't yet been graced by Cudi's style were then given a front row seat to what he can do. I'm kinda like a big Ayo, sitting on top of it. It's more than a feeling, ain't it? I be damn it. Consequence, who at one point in time offered album refunds, and at this point, on October 1st, 2010, dropped another project called Man Purses, officially departed from Good Music. He had been feeling left out, growing resentful of Kanye and what the label stood for, because while everyone else was getting out their dreams, Consequence had been pushed to the side. While Kanye is constantly collaborating at shows, on songs, and signing new artists frequently, Consequence still hadn't reached a level of success he felt he deserved. Consequence jabs at Kanye on his way out, as Kanye's facade had begun to show some weak spots. And the one common thread that's in the Taylor's kid is my crew ain't been the same since WRLD and Taylor Swift. He's referencing the infamous Taylor Swift incident where Kanye rushed the stage in the middle of her acceptance speech. I've already covered this. Go watch this one if you want an in-depth look at everything that's happened throughout different eras of his career. And then he also goes on to mention Amber Rose, of course. Amber Rose and Kanye were in a relationship from 2008 to 2010, and their relationship was one of the most high-profile relationships of that time period. Well, as all of Kanye's relationships, they end in a fireworks show befitting of none other than the 4th of July. And well, they both had things to say about each other, with Amber sharing details about what she went through during their relationship, and Kanye going after Wiz Khalifa on his song Cold, which didn't really help much, as those two would end up getting married and having a kid together. Throughout Kanye's career, his fans have become privy to him blowing up in the media, causing a hellstorm of drama and pretty much killing his entire reputation, before going on to drop an incredible piece of work that turns out to be so good everyone forgives him. I myself am still coping with Graduation, however there's only so many of those I have left. in this instance, after all of his recent shit with Taylor and Amber, he goes on to drop My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, which is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece of an album. During this time, he also readied his checkbook and went on a signing spree, as shortly before dropping the album, he signed Pusha T to the label, and then shortly after that, brought on Q-Tip, Hit-Boy, D-Banj, Don Jazzy, and then signed a distribution deal with Def Jam. Good Music is absolutely peaking at this point, as they now have a powerhouse of artists in their walls, and Kanye is back in good graces with almost everyone after My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. A Consequence diss aimed at Pusha T and the label that no one gave a shit about watched The Throne, A Cruel Summer movie, and Cruel Summer the album, debuting at #1 later, and we began to hit what I like to call the Cold War between Kanye, the media, and ruining his own career in a way that's unrecoverable. However, we're still a ways away from the nukes beginning to fall.
Falling, dreaming, talking.
I'm no longer on Good Music. This is kind of like something that
you got tired of Kanye.
We've reached 2013, and Kid Cudi decides to leave the label. It was on amicable terms, but it is a sign that not everything is what it seems at the label, because if it was, there would have been no reason for him to go. You see, Cudi left on good terms, but really because he was underused and wanting to go in a different direction with his sound and creative energy. And with Kanye always being willing to push the boundaries on what is popular, this should have been perfect to do under Good Music, but their relationship is a tricky one. Hit-Boy also then left the label after his contract expired in the summer of the same year. If we then fast forward to 2015, we begin the roller coaster ride of events that will unfold. It starts with Pusha T being named the president of Good Music, which to this day I would still consider a good move, as Pusha T is an incredible rapper with amazing projects, but it wouldn't be enough to block what is about to come. After a weird situation with signing Tyga from Young Money that would culminate in only one single, and then Push announcing that they signed the Migos, who would then say there were talks but they didn't actually join the label, an updated roster would be released on Twitter. As of September 9th, 2016, the official Good Music roster consisted of Kanye, John Legend, Malik Yusuf, Big Sean, Mr. Hudson, Sci-Hi the Prince, Mos Def, Pusha T, D-Banj, Q-Tip, Teyana Taylor, Casey Hill, Travis Scott, HXLT, Designer, Legend Slim, Tyga, and Migos. Well, we know what happened with Tyga and the Migos. D-Banj was also gone after a fallout with Don Jazzy and not releasing any music under the label. Malik Yusuf also left the label around the time of Cudi, as he wanted to go in a new creative direction and was feeling underused, much like Cudi. Mr. Hudson and John Legend both left around this time as well, going in new directions themselves, and Mos Def retired from music. The label was down to Big Sean and Pusha T to brunt the weight of expectations, as the other artists weren't quite big enough to carry the label themselves, while Kanye was away working on his own projects. In an attempt to bring back hype to the label, Cruel Winter was announced, but just like many other Kanye-led projects, this one never came to fruition. The Life of Pablo was able to breathe some life back into everyone, but it wasn't enough to really make a difference with what was about to happen. While touring for The Life of Pablo, Kanye would begin to attack the industry as a whole, with big names like Drake, Jay-Z, and Beyonce being in his crosshairs, before the tour was canceled, with Kanye being hospitalized for quote-unquote temporary psychosis.
I'm on my Trump shit tonight. Let me tell you what it is, bro. Hey, you know me.
The first family of reality TV leaving Los Angeles. Paparazzi magnate Kim Kardashian West today in New York. Her husband Kanye dropped $14 million on this ranch in Wyoming, according to TMZ. The massive property is 4,500 acres. So big, it's called Monster Lake Ranch. People magazine says Kanye's been in Cody, Wyoming for weeks now, and is already scouting schools there for their 4 kids.
What came next was a complete and total absence from the spotlight for Kanye, something that so many of us wish he would go back to doing, because oh my god, it gets so bad. This is around the time of his Wyoming sessions. As I covered in this video, I'm serious, go watch it please, Kanye would produce albums for Pusha T, Teyana Taylor, Nas, and then he would come out with Ye. Ye was an incredible work of art, and to this day I feel like it's his most vulnerable he's ever been with his music. Following this came Kids See Ghosts alongside former label mate Kid Cudi, and it felt like the natural order was returning, but as we now know, with the Kanye hate speech into incredible album cycle, it wouldn't last.
Every human being has something of value that they brought to the table, especially Hitler.
When you hear about slavery for 400 years, that sounds like a choice.
In 2021, Big Sean would be another domino to fall on the ever-shrinking roster of Good Music. He stepped away not liking his cut of the business, claiming that he worked his way out of his deal, which would prompt Kanye to go on Drink Champs and say that signing Big Sean was the worst thing he's ever done.
When I die, on my tombstone it's gonna say, I deserve to be here because I signed Big Sean.
Then, in 2022, Def Jam would cut ties with the label, publicly announcing it in an attempt to be cut loose from the spaz in the news Kanye. Do you know how crazy you have to be acting for fucking Diddy to come out against you? He was also on Twitter notoriously spazzing out and then being banned off almost every social media site. What was the nail in the coffin to cause this? Him saying he will go DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. After all of this, Balenciaga ended their relationship with the artist in October of 2022. He was dropped by the CAA as a client, and then Adidas ended their brand partnership with him the following day, which was especially tough for him since he has his whole Yeezy brand through Adidas. Gap then pulled all of the Yeezy products from their stores, Foot Locker followed suit doing the same, and Spotify's CEO would blast Ye publicly. If you aren't familiar with Kanye's business ventures, he had also started his own sports agency called Donda Sports, with notable signees Aaron Donald and Jaylen Brown both leaving at this time too. You know what, I'm just going to show you a full timeline that Billboard published because honestly I could sit here for hours explaining everybody who denounced and dropped him from their partnerships and why.
This the real one, baby.
With pretty much every single corporation on the face of the earth being scared to touch a walking hazmat breach, Ye was left to his own devices. He notoriously had to release his Vultures 1 and 2 albums independently, and the same is the case for Bully. This video is about Good Music though, and what happened to it. As we can see, nobody wants to be near Kanye at this point. He's nuked his reputation so far into the dirt, archaeologists won't be able to dig it up for the next 200 years. And that will clearly have repercussions on artists who were signed under him at any given point in time. In December of 2022, Pusha T publicly announced that he was no longer on speaking terms with Ye, and while still under contract, has all but released himself from anything Good Music related. The rest of the artists still technically signed to the label are forced to release their music under the banner of Good Music. However, it's essentially just a waiting game until everyone is out of their contracts officially, and as far as the namesake goes, that's all it is at this point. A namesake. Even Ye wanted out as far back as 2018, so until every last contract is officially dried up, everyone who is unfortunately being held captive by legal jargon is just digging the grave for the label to finally go to rest.